This
CG.
conference will now be recorded.
Hey, I'm not sure who, but it sounds like somebody has a television in the background, and I can hear that noise. If you can like maybe turn that down a little bit, that'd be great.
No, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to mute everybody. Okay, so everybody's muted except me. So here's kind of the agenda for today. And it will follow pretty much what we do in our physical live meetings. So first we're going to do a round of introductions. I'll unmute people one at a time so that you can introduce yourself. Please try to keep it to within like a minute or two. Also, and I already did this, and this will be, I will, after this meeting, I will publish the chat log. So if you want to put in like your contact information in the chat and send it out as a text message, again, when we finish this, I'll take whatever information is in that chat log and then blast it out to all people. So I at a minimum, put in your name, your email, your cell phone if you want, and maybe a website and just a one line of what you do. If you go in there now, you'll already see, even before we started, I did that for myself, so to kind of give you an idea. And then I just want to mention a couple of upcoming activities. So first, on Monday, August the 12th, we're doing our normal business live networking lunch, which will be over at Kenneth's Chop House at lunchtime on Monday, August the 12th. On Thursday, August 15th, we're doing the evening networking activity. Same thing at Kenneth's Chop House, but now this one's at 5:30. It will be in the outside patio. So, and that one's nice because, hopefully the weather cooperates. We'll be outside. They got a fire pit out there, and you can get the drinks in the bar and then just step outside and chat. And then the next virtual business networking meeting, similar to this one, will be on Monday, August the 25th, same time as today, 10:30 a.m. All right, so I'm going to start muting people one at a time so you can introduce yourselves. And then after that, we'll just open it up for general discussion. Hopefully the introductions trigger some thoughts on or some questions on the rest of the folks here, and we'll get some questions and some general interaction after the intros. And then after that, that's it. And I'm just going to go in the order that I have people here, which I think might be the order that people logged in. So Brian, if you could turn on your mic and introduce yourself.
Good morning, Brian Marion from First National Bank, which is convenient. I'm the branch manager of the office in Squirrel Hill. I know some of you are familiar with me. We do a little bit of everything at First National, of course, accounts and whatnot. What I've really been concentrating on is loans for the summer, personal loans, home equity loans. It's that time of the year when folks are doing repairs and remodeling, and as your basement floods, people need home equity loans and lines of credit. It's also the time for businesses that are ramping up for either the summer or coming up into the fall. We're also seeing a lot of folks doing a lot of equipment loans and leasing. Those are nice because we can turn those around very quickly. So, up to $50,000, $100,000, big piece of equipment, truck, whatever the case might be, down to, if somebody's looking for smaller equipment, they need to equip an office with new computers or business machines or whatever it is. I was out talking to HVAC folks and people who do restaurant hoods the other day, which apparently are quite expensive. So that's what I've been concentrating on mostly for the summer. It just seems to be that's when people do those things. So again, Brian Marion at First National Bank. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Let me see here. Okay, James, go ahead and please introduce yourself to the rest of the group and worldwide once we post it online.
Wow, worldwide. Isn't that something? Yes, James Book of Internet. Home loan advisor with eMortgage Management, helping homeowners in Pennsylvania for 22 years to get financing for purchasing, refinancing, consolidating, and building new homes. So good referrals for me are anyone you know who's currently renting and looking to own their own home. Interest rates are at an all-time low, 4% and lower. When I bought my first home back in the 90s, interest rates were 12%. So I view it like they're giving money away for free at 4%, 3.5%. I have several clients recently who were paying about $1,000 in rent, and their landlords raised the rent to like $1,400 a month. You can get a really nice home for $1,200 a monthly payment. Start owning your home as opposed to throwing money away for rent. I'm helping a lot of people right now who bought a home in the last few years and maybe took an FHA loan. And most people don't know with the FHA loan, the mortgage interest stays for the life of the loan. So I'm able to refinance out of their FHA loan. Sometimes the mortgage interest is $300 a month. Refinance them down to, even if the rate is higher, their overall monthly payment is lower, and then they'll eliminate that mortgage insurance for the remainder of the loan. I can help self-employed buyers. A lot of times a self-employed buyer, I had a lady recently, she had a $400,000 income, but her tax person reduced her taxable income to the IRS to $20,000. You don't buy very much house with $20,000. Programs where I can get her approved without her tax return. So self-employed buyers, people renting, people with credit scores below 620 down to 500, I can get them approved. A lot of people who've possibly been turned down in the past, I can help them purchase their first home. Another thing I'm working with, aside from regular mortgages, traditional, anyone who has a loan, let's say with 25 years to go, I can show them how to pay it off about 8 to 10 years faster. So that's all I could do. Hope to see you guys here, well, not here, but over Chop House on Monday. James Bukovac, the Money Man.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Let's see. Siggy, if you want to turn on your mic and introduce yourself. Some of us know each other from some of these previous meetings. I know you're joining us for the first time today. So again, please introduce yourself to the rest of the group here. And if you can make Chop House on Monday, we'd love to have you.
Great. Well, thanks everybody for me being part of this. My name is C.G. Loya. I am the owner of the Alternative Board of Directors here in Pittsburgh. It is a franchise out of Denver. I recently purchased it May 1st, although I've been involved in it for a number of years. The Alternative Board of Directors, it's pretty simple. The model is pretty simple. You know how large companies have a board of directors to help them to help guide management or guide the president. Well, small and medium-sized companies typically do not. So what we do, it's a dues-paying model. So the owner of a company pays monthly dues, and for that, we put them on a board with 7 other business owners. We meet monthly. It's very structured. We run it like a board of directors, but we talk about common business issues as well as each member during that 4-hour meeting gets to bring up their most pressing business issue, and you have 7 other owners chime in, because collectively around the room you have about 200, 250 years of business experience laying around the table. You also get private coaching as part of your membership dues. Typically our market is there's no hard and fast requirements of who can join, but typically the owners that are attracted to this model are doing between 1 and 50 million in revenue or so. We have ones that are over that, we have ones that are under that, but essentially we help business owners. We're not consultants. We don't come in and fix a business owner's problems. We fix the owner's relationship to the business, whether it's anything under the sun. I mean, we've dealt everything from strategy, whether they should open up another location here and there. We've dealt with love triangles in the workplace. We've dealt with loans. It's just all over the place. And like I said, I've been involved for quite a while. I own a few other businesses, but this is the one that I'm 100% involved with now. So thank you very much, Sal.
Perfect. And I have a question for you, but I'll save it till after the round of intros here. So, Stephen, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name's Stephen Ganley. I am a CPA. And I had my own business for about 2 years now. And that's kind of it. I mean, if you got a tax question, I can probably give you a hand.
Okay. Are you just so that I know, because most of us are in the Pittsburgh area. Are you in the Pittsburgh area?
Yeah, you guys are looking at my home in Bethel Park right now.
Okay, excellent. No, and the reason I ask is in one of the previous meetings, we actually had a gentleman from, I think it was North Carolina, because again, these emails go out to so many people, and especially when you do it on LinkedIn also. And anyway, he was interested in joining us, relocating and working in Pittsburgh. And I think there was another gentleman also out from California that could work with pretty much anybody in the world. So anyway, this is typically a Pittsburgh group just because that's the bulk of the people that I know professionally. Yeah. But every once in a while, we'll get somebody from outside the area,
yeah.
which is actually I like it a lot. I just want to know.
Yeah, with tax preparation, for CPA or something, I can, especially with clients doing business all across the country and everything, you don't have to be. I'm able to file a California return just as I'm able to file a Pennsylvania tax return. So, I guess, the coin has two sides to it. You could have a California CPA who could file a Pennsylvania return. So yeah, you could have people chiming in from there as well. So.
Okay, excellent. All right. I need to introduce myself, and then I'll open it up for everybody. So thank you all for joining us today. My name is Sal Acosta. I am a business broker. So what I do is I help people buy and sell businesses. Typically do a 2-hour footprint around St. Clairsville, Ohio, which is the very eastern edge of Ohio. So that'll be Pittsburgh, north of Pittsburgh, Wexford, Cranberry, Butler, Monroeville. Then in West Virginia, down to about Morgantown's an hour and a half, and then back into Ohio, Cleveland, Columbus is kind of about the hairy edge of those 2 hours. So anything within that envelope. In terms of business size, I am a Main Street business broker, so that means we deal with Main Street businesses, anything that's a bar, a restaurant, small car dealership, small factory, retail store. Put some numbers around that. Anything that has between 10 and 250 employees, anything that has from 0 to about 10 or $20 million in revenue, anything that has, hopefully positive cash flow from 0 up to about, $1 million or $2 million. Typical client is somebody that is 60 to 80 years old, started his business 10, 20, 30 years ago, and is now looking forward to retiring. But the vast majority of his personal wealth is tied up in this business. So before he can retire and go play golf in Florida or hang out with the grandkids, he's got to come see me to sell the business and maybe overlay that over Social Security and any other savings that he may have so that he can have a good retirement. So that's pretty much it. Oh, one last reminder again, put your contact information in the chat box as a little text message there, so that I can again share that back out with everybody. And then that's it. I'm gonna open up all the mics here, and we can all hear each other now. I have a question for somebody, but I'm going to let other people go first. So does anybody have any questions for anybody based on the introductions that we've heard?
Question I have for you, Steve. Do you ever get clients who say they've been turned on for any type of lending?
Probably. Yeah, I've probably dealt with something like that in the past. When I'm, preparing a tax return, especially with businesses and everything, which is kind of where you want your accounting firm to go. I would say, it's a little bit more of, they don't necessarily get turned down for lending. It's more of, common things I would recommend maybe would be like at a CPA level, like debt consolidation, kind of things like that. The one thing, speaking to your point, when one of you said that interest rates were at like an all-time low, tax rates are at an all-time low now. So one of the things I'm also recommending to clients is roll over your pre-tax stuff. So your IRAs, can even do it with a 401k, if you will, to after-tax dollars, Roth IRAs, just because we're sitting right now at historical low tax rates. And I mean, tax rates just aren't going to get any lower. It's just probably never going to happen. So that, I mean, when you're preparing a tax return, I don't know if that answers your question. I don't really dive in too much to their like whole like personal financial advisor type of thing. We do talk about some stuff, but yeah, I have a lot of friends who, that are, in their mid 30s like I am, that are renting. And yeah, I mean, I do advocate home ownership whenever possible. Absolutely.
Okay, excellent. Any other questions from anybody to anybody?
I had a question for you, Sal.
Shoot.
You ever buy and sell accounting businesses?
Yes, we do. First, just to be real clear, I'm an intermediary, so I mean, I don't do it directly. I'm a
Right.
matchmaker between the buyer and the seller. But the answer is yes. That falls under the category of a professional practice, and as opposed to just like a general business, like a retail business, and professional practices have special nuances. The two typical ones is sometimes there's some regulatory requirements in terms of who the owner can be. For especially again for professional practices. And the other sort of little nuance in there is a lot of times these professional practices are about 100% intangible assets. There's not a lot of inventory or machinery or real estate that you can go and feel and touch. But having said those two things, we can market it and do a transaction just like we would for another business. So yeah, the answer is yes.
So do they come to you like with a buyer in mind? For instance, if you had a baby boomer who was ready to retire and they had, let's say, a one-man shop, they had a tax practice, I don't know, in Upper St. Clair, right down the street or something.
Okay.
Would they come to you with a buyer in mind, or are they looking kind of to you to, as the intermediary, find a buyer?
So yeah, I would say 80 to 90% of the time they do not have a buyer in mind. Quite frankly, because when they do have a buyer in mind, they usually explore that relationship and that possible transaction before coming to me. And the reason I don't say 100% is there are some cases where somebody has a buyer in mind, but they say for whatever reason, listen, I would like to sell to this guy. I think he would be a great buyer. I think he would be interested. Maybe they have a conversation, maybe they haven't, but they don't feel sort of qualified or capable to do sort of the mechanics of the transaction, right? They don't know how to start beyond maybe just saying, hey, this would be a good buyer, or hey, we've kind of talked and I'm interested in selling, he's interested in buying, but we don't know what paperwork to do, we don't know what to negotiate, we don't know what's customary, we don't know, like again in the example of a professional practice, maybe how that transaction would be structured a little bit different from selling a factory or just a retail store. So they'll come to me to help them do that transaction. And by the way, just so what we do is, because also that's not guaranteed. So just what I do is in my listing agreement, I create a little sort of appendix that says, hey, and typically I represent the seller. The seller has already identified, A, B, and C as potential buyers. And I give them a special rate on that, different from the rate that from like when I do all the work and I just go out and look for the buyers. And so we approach those guys. And if it ends up we can do a transaction. The seller gets a great deal. Sometimes that falls through, and then we just go into the general market. So I hope I didn't give you too much of a long answer to a simple question.
No, that's fine. That's fine. Yeah, if you ever come across someone who's looking to sell their tax or accounting practice, yeah, please, that doesn't have a buyer already in mind, yeah, please let me know.
Okay,
Remind
fantastic.
them.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. And that does happen. So yeah, okay.
man, thanks.
All right. Any other questions from anybody to anybody?
So I've got a question for CG. When you say you do the alternative board, do you have a group of, you've got a team that you work with, you've got let's say an accountant, you've got somebody like Sal as a business broker, you've got an investment guy. I mean, do you pull in a team like that, or how does that work when someone contacts you and they're looking for advice?
Well, the other members on the board, well, within the TAB model, we only work with business owners. So if somebody, you could have a financial advisor from Merrill Lynch, but he would never be on our board, or she would never be on our board. So you want to, I'll give you an example. So my wife and I own a holistic medical practice. We've owned that for 13 years. And I joined TAB as a member of that practice. I ran the practice. And we had been in business for about 4 or 5 years before I joined, and I just needed help. You have your strengths, but you quickly figure out there's a lot more to running a medical practice than just delivering good clinical results. So I was on a board, and my board had a CPA on there, had two engineering firms, a manufacturing firm. We had a GC on there. So we had a pipeline construction guy. Actually, you want to be on a board with vastly different industries because you want different perspectives. The people that run the board, the moderators, we don't call ourselves coaches. We're actually facilitators because we don't pretend we know more than the business owners. So the moderators, we have actually, including me, we have 5 of them. So we have a total of 8 boards right now with roughly 8 companies on each. And basically that's how we run the board. The job of the moderator and the facilitator is to obviously keep the meeting going, making sure we're on time, to facilitate discussion. But in the private coaching sessions, the moderator's job is really to diagnose the issues and pull out the appropriate tools. That we have a ton of tools in our toolbox to help a business owner. We firmly believe that most business owners have the answers to their issues within them, but they lack accountability. When you own the company, you're not accountable to anybody. They lack accountability. They sometimes lack perspective because they're in the weeds, kind of a thing. So that's how we're set up. We do have a few financial advisory firms that are members of TAB. We are not a networking organization. This isn't BNI or anything like that. Does some networking happen? Absolutely, but that's an offshoot of the model.
Okay, that makes sense. So then people are drawing. I didn't realize they were drawing from of a board. Okay, that makes sense.
Right.
And actually, you know what? Let me tag on to that, because that is actually sort of very related to the question that I was thinking of, and actually maybe it's more for Brian and John Fabianic, who's not here from FNB Bank also. But Brian, let's say you make a loan to a business, whether it's an SBA loan, conventional loan, however the case may be, and let's even say after a couple of years that business starts to struggle a little bit financially to repay back the loan. Do you, from the bank side, suggest or request or require from that business owner to get some help, whether it's, and again, I understand maybe TAB doesn't do consulting, but still, join TAB, join something else, get a business coach, but get a consultant, or is that something that you just kind of leave to the business owner to figure out on his own?
Yeah, I guess it depends on how receptive the person is and what kind of context I have. So now knowing about Tab, I have that in my back pocket to say if I've got somebody who's either struggling or maybe is not struggling, but maybe has been flat for the last couple of years, and how do they progress? So if I've got the relationship and I'm trusted enough by that business owner for me to say, hey, Joe, um, you're struggling, or I see that things are fine, but nothing's really changed in the last couple of years. What are you doing? So I mean, yeah, that's certainly something that could be in my tool bag.
Yeah. And Brian, FYI, I know the gentleman that I purchased Tab from, his name is Glenn Flickinger. He's an ex-banker. He's very good friends with Bruce Austin of FNB. So I know Bruce and Glenn, and we've done a lot of joint events together. So we actually have a pretty long-standing relationship with FNB.
Nice.
Okay, cool. All right. Any other questions from anybody to anybody on this or anything even we haven't even talked about, but we have the right crew here today.
It was more of a question. It was just a comment. James, in another life, I actually owned a mortgage company for a while, so I know your space pretty well. So
My condolences to you.
Actually, I shut it down right before the crash, about 6 months, which is when we started the medical practice. So I'd like to claim I was smart enough to foresee the crash, but I wasn't. It was just sort of dumb luck. So.
Yeah, I always remember there was some business transactions that were done like in 2006, 2007 that I wasn't involved with. I just saw them happen. And I've always wondered exactly that. Were these people like, I don't even know how to pronounce the word, quiescent or something, that they saw that in the back half of '07 and '08, the wheels were going to fall off the truck, or were they just like incredibly lucky and get out and retired right before, again, all the wheels fell off the truck? So I'll never know that. I'm sure it's some combination.
Well, we all knew the party was going to end,
Government.
but we thought it was going to be a slow ending to the party, not going over a cliff, which is what happened. So.
Yeah, you were looking for the slow dance, right? Not going off into the punch bowl.
Bingo.
All
Well,
right.
actually, in relation to the market, I pulled my investments out of equities into cash in '07 when I saw Countrywide change their licensing throughout the country. And that was along with some timing. I realized that I think the market was up to about 14,500, and that was the time to get out of the equities and sit in cash for a while.
So I have a question for Brian. How long have you been in the business, Brian?
I've been with FNB for about a year. I've been doing banking and actually some mortgage servicing since late '90s.
Okay. Well, it's sort of a question / comment. So I know right now it seems like I seem to be one of the few who's been predicting a recession for the last year. And I certainly think, with the yield curve being inverted, I'm not sure if it's still inverted or not, but that's always, it's one of the indicators. But my question is, back in '07, '08, our business was just starting. We had loans and we have investors and lines of credit. And it was amazing because right around that time, this happened to a lot of business owner friends. Right when those business owners needed their lines of credit, they were frozen or they were called in. Do you see that happening again? I know you don't have a crystal ball, but is that sort of just the way it is, and we should expect the same thing?
Gosh, that's a good question. I don't know. I mean, as you said, anybody who spent any time with mortgages knew it was coming, and somewhere in the 2000s, I don't think anybody predicted the time or kind of the extent. And I spent some time at a company called Conti Mortgage doing loan workouts, end of the '90s, early 2000s, and I wasn't surprised. Well, I was surprised, as you said, by kind of how quickly it happened and the extent, and how far-reaching that was and how jumpy it made everybody. I would say maybe we've learned some lessons, maybe we haven't. I mean, lending is much more conservative still at the moment. I mean, here we are 10 years on. and lending is much more conservative. So presumably that wouldn't happen again, but who knows? I mean, we don't really do a lot of that. We weren't in that business before. We're not in that business now. We're making good loans to folks who can actually repay, and sometimes to my frustration, we probably even go a little bit beyond. So I mean, I don't see us doing that. Whether the industry as a whole will, who knows?
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
Anything else from anybody? Nope. Going once? Because this meeting started at 10:30 and it's nominally scheduled for an hour. But quite honestly, if we can get done earlier, that's fine too. So anyway,
Well,
going 12 questions from
the only
anybody.
thing I'll say, so,
I'm sorry. Go ahead, James.
okay, the only comment I'll make about how things were back from 2000 to 2007, I'd had, a lot of small business owners actually take equity out of their residential homes. They own a home for 700,000-800,000, and they were like 100% cash out as far as their home equity lines of credit. So that's where everything was overextended back in 05 to 07. And now everything has been much more conservative, where we only lend up to like 75%. So I don't think things are as bad as what they were in 07. And I think there's going to be so much of a need for pullback.
Yeah, you're right. That is a good point, because I remember even at the time, people were identifying, okay, people are using their homes as a piggy bank. They're under the assumption that prices are only going to move one way, which is up. So every time prices moved up a little bit, they would refinance, take some equity out, and then that didn't end well.
Well, yeah, and I really, it's more of just a gut thing right now. But you look at I really do believe the shit's gonna hit the fan in the next 6 to 9 months. Not in.
We're gonna have to bleep you out. Beep.
Sorry, yeah, I forget we're being recorded. And to the point where we're advising our clients, many of our tab clients, to start getting your white paper with some bullet points ready, with what are you going to do, because so many times people get caught with their pants down. They have 1 or 2 bad months, 3 bad months. They're like, okay, I'm sure things are going to turn around. And then now you're 4 or 5 months and now it's a trend. Now you're really, and it's really hard to make clear-eyed decisions when you're under stress. So we really advise people to start getting that thing, and even, it doesn't have to be real detailed, but put it on your top drawer, in your desk, and say, okay, I've made a plan when my KPIs are showing me that I'm down 10%, or when orders are down, X%, or now that the tariffs are becoming more apparent as to how they're affecting businesses, especially manufacturers and everything. So we're just encouraging people to. It's just like having a safety plan, an evacuation plan, if you will, so that when things start turning against you, you have already have prepared for what to do. And there's nothing, Brian, to I know that there are business owners out there that aren't thinking they need a line of credit right now, but boy, they better go get them, because as you know, it's like insurance. Loans are like insurance. You better get them when you don't need them, because when you need them, you can't get it. So we're trying to counsel every business owner, man, go get a line of credit, do something, because it's not going to be this easy forever.
And by the way, and in my experience, again with the previous cycle, is what a lot of business owners don't realize is that this is really a supply chain, for lack of a better term, and you may have a customer that may have a customer that may even have a customer, and then that second or third level guy doesn't pay because he just doesn't have the money, he went bankrupt, whatever the case may be, and then he doesn't pay the next guy, and then that guy can't pay you. And then now you are in trouble because you have a big account that just can't pay you because they just don't have the money, and that could throw you into a real tailspin. and it might not even be your direct customer that you keep tabs on, no pun intended, and you have a relationship with, but it may be one or two levels down the supply chain, and there's just no way for you to see it coming.
So Steve, for your benefit, I guess, let me put this: if I was, and Sal, no offense to you, but if I was going to buy a business, I would wait out because I think the valuations are going to start heading down. We actually have an opportunity to buy a competitor in the medical practice, and I'm just waiting them out because I don't think I don't think the valuations. Well, I know the
Yeah.
valuation isn't there.
No, yeah. Some of I've actually looked at a couple so far. And I mean, just kind of like, standard talk is for when you're buying an accounting firm, you usually charge 1 year's revenue. So for instance, if you bill 500,000 a year, that's what the accounting firm costs. That's the purchase price of the accounting firm. That's your baseline stereotypical garden variety deal. But yeah, I would agree. Some of those valuations can also be, just completely tainted, where it's like I'm going into some of these practices with baby boomers. You may have billed 500,000, but your age of your typical client is like 60 years old. So how long is that going to go? Kind of speaking to Sal, like, when I first started 2 years ago, I started on the side when I was still working for a public accounting firm. Somebody screwed me for the first time, and that never will happen again, ever. And I was so mad about that, but it was the same exact thing you said: is prepared a tax return for a client. Their typical thing is their payables are due in 30 days. They get their receivables in 90 days. That's once again, your garden variety manufacturer right there. And yeah. So I would agree with you. I think that's a very good point. Is the valuations might come way down, especially if you find a buyer who's in a pinch if the market goes down in the next recession or something. Like one of these baby boomers needs some cash and they got to sell their business quick. That's going to be a good buy. So yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah. Oh, and let me just piggyback on that for a second, because I'm almost doing, to be honest, the mirror image of that, and I'm telling a lot of the people that are approaching me and saying, "Hey, should I sell?" I tell them, "Listen, you really should sell now, because based on everything we've been discussing, right? Once the shit hits the fan, first of all, the buyers are going to go away. You're not going to want to sell, and the valuations are going to be really low. So I don't want it to sound like a sales tactic, but I tell people, listen, if you want to sell now, because we may have an upcoming period of who knows, you guys tell me, but 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, that it's going to be really hard to sell businesses and to buy businesses, because again, the valuations are going to be down, so the sellers are not going to want to sell, and the buyers may not even be capable of buying. So that's coming up, and the other thing is people lose perspective too. From the minute you say I want to sell and sign the listing agreement, it could take you 6 to 9 to 12 months. So things are still okay today, but we have to shoot over the horizon and say, hey, if this transaction is going to close a year from now, how are things going to look a year from now when we're closing this transaction that we're starting today? So those are all things to think about.
Hey guys, I got to run off to another meeting, but nice to meet you all.
Me too.
All right, Jen.
All right.
Hey, Sal,
Well,
thanks
listen,
a lot
I'm going to shut this down unless somebody really has something more. And you guys know, again, we're meeting in person at Kenner's Chop House on Monday. So hopefully I can see you guys all there in person.
All right, thanks.
Yep, good deal. All right, thanks,
Bye-bye.
Sal.
All right, you guys all take care.